Hi, Melanie Yates. Thank you so much for being on the Positively Joy podcast today.
Hi there. So happy to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we're happy that you're here because you are going to help me unpack Amanda Schaefer's story. Now, if folks out there listening, if you haven't heard Amanda's story, I encourage you to go ahead and stop this, go back 1 week and listen to Amanda's story. She is a gratitude girl. She's all about gratitude. In fact, she says that gratitude is the only response to God's grace. And I fully believe that as well. But she's also gone through divorce and had a very interesting story about how she met Jesus. So you need to go back and listen to that if you haven't already. But assuming that you have, we're going to go forward. And Melanie is going to help me talk a little bit about some of the lessons that we learned from Amanda in that group, and also her own expertise. So Melanie, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get started.
Okay, well, my most favorite thing is relationship problems. And that's because I've had big relationship problems. In fact, if I'm not careful, if I'm not spiritually fit, if I'm not connected to my Heavenly Father and doing things every day to build that mindset and to feel God's grace and to learn about Jesus, it is so easy to go back to my default. And that is Melanie wants what Melanie wants. And I want you to behave the way Melanie wants. And that's really the default. And so that can get me into trouble with my relationships even now. Yeah, I'm just laughing because my son turned 18 today. And
wow, happy birthday.
I know, right? I had a meltdown a couple days ago. And, he just seems like he's so put together, and he was so upset. And as a mom, I know there's some moms out there. It's hard to watch, which he's not my baby anymore, to watch anyone cry, but he was so upset. And I just was begging the Lord to help me with my body language, with my words, what to say, what not to say. And because of, it's so important to me to hear God and have a relationship with God. First, I remembered I needed God in that moment because I don't know about you, but I want to fix. I want to correct. I want to change. I want to wipe the tears away. I want to say, oh, don't feel like that. Like, that's my default. And I remembered to ask God what to do. And it was so beautiful. I only messed it up a little bit.
That's okay.
I'm human. And the thing is, so hopefully we're going to unpack some great ways to be connected with God and to build those daily practices and tools to actually hear him and know who's talking to you and actually get the results of God being in your life. I mean, I could feel God's presence. And looking back at what happened, I know that was the Spirit leading me, not Melanie leading me. And it's important to know the difference, So relationships are my thing. Jesus Christ is my number one. And I'm happy to be here. I can't wait to talk about Amanda's story. What an amazing testimony of Jesus Christ working in her life and the people around her. Wow.
I know, absolutely. And we're going to get to that. But before we do, those of you watching this video might be wondering, why is she wearing a shirt that says taken? So a red shirt that says taken, for those of you listening, with a little heart next to the word taken. So I am remarried. I am married. I've been married for, it'll be 8 years. On Good Friday, was married on a Good Friday. And we do celebrate whenever the Good Friday happens, and not just the date. And there's a whole story behind that, which I have talked about before. I'll talk about it again at some point. So yes, I am taken, but I'm also taken by the other person who I know loves me. And that's a part of my own testimony when I was recently broken up and just thought I'd never be loved again. So I am taken by the Lord, and he loves me. And that is a message that the Positively Joy podcast has been pushing out there for years now, but we're just focusing it a little bit differently now. So now that I've said that, Valentine's Day is coming up, and I am going to have a week-long devotional program that you can join me, and I'm going to have all the information on the website, positivelyjoy.com. So I encourage you to go on over there and sign up for that, because sometimes when we're getting close to Valentine's Day and we are either still single or recently separated, it can be really, really tough. And so, we're going to have something together where we can talk about it. And Melanie, I encourage you to be a part of that as well. Okay, good. Maybe I'll make you like one of the co-administrators, and we can talk, and we can answer questions and solve problems and all of that good stuff. And stay till the end because we have a special announcement about solving problems. So stay till the end. All right, let's get into Amanda's story. Sound good, Melanie?
Absolutely.
Okay. So Amanda Schaefer, she's a podcaster, she's an author, and I've always known that she loves gratitude and she preaches hope and peace. But I didn't know her full story really until we talked, and boy, was it amazing. So she is single now and very happily single, but she had two failed marriages. And I don't even like using the word failed, but two marriages that ended in a separation, ended in divorce. But God used those. And I think sometimes when we do have a relationship that for whatever reason has to end, we think, well, why do we even do this in the first place? That was a waste of time. Or what did I do that was wrong? And that is so not true. I would say in just about all of our cases, but for Amanda's in particular, because, and I'm not going to ruin it for you because I really do want you to go back and listen to it, but she was able to create a bond with the first husband and his new family and lead them to Christ. Oh my goodness. And then with this in the marriage, she learned such a valuable lesson that the Lord taught her about being obedient and what obedience looks like. So that's all I'll say. But her biggest takeaway is being faithful and practicing gratitude. So I do want to talk about gratitude, but I want to know just from you, Melanie, what was a big takeaway from her episode from you?
Well, I love that she said in her second marriage, she was released, that
Yes.
God released her from her marriage, and that she had an awakening, like she had a spiritual awakening, which was so beautifully articulated. And so she had this spiritual experience, an awakening, a change, a transformation where she will never forget that day. She committed her life to God, and she has stayed true to that commitment. And so when that happened, she was still married to somebody, and it sounded like even from that point it started getting really bad. It got bad where here she is, she wants to do what the Lord wants her to do, and she needs to separate. So she didn't want to break her vows because now she's learning all about what the Lord wants. And it's not about what she wants, it's about what the Lord wants. So she's trying to honor what she's reading in the Bible about when you get married, you stay married. And yet she knew that the things that were going on were also not okay with God. And so she, instead of getting a divorce, she had a separation, and that she did what she could, that she felt led to do. And then she had this another moment where she was seeking God. What I heard her say is she was seeking God, and she wasn't even asking God, should I get a divorce? It was like in that moment, she was doing her daily practice of having a relationship with God, and God basically came to her and showed her what the next step was. And I loved that she said, I was released from my marriage. And one thing I love about that happened to me in my divorce. And, I was actively praying for God to release me from that marriage for 3 years. I prayed, I want to say every day, but it was a prayer in my heart if I didn't say it out loud. And I had similar things that were going on in my marriage that she said were going on in her second marriage. And, it was so hard. And I just held on. The experience was gonna help me be stronger. And I just got to practice trusting and relying on God so that when the time came that I was released, I knew it was of God and there was no turning back. I didn't have to prove to anyone. I didn't have to get permission. It's like me and God knew it was time. And so I love that confidence, which I just wanted to share. For me, I learned that confidence in Hebrew means with Christ. And then of course I had to double check. So I wanted to check my source. And I have believed this whole time that in Hebrew, confidence means with Christ. And I would tell myself that wherever I go, if Christ is with me, I'm good. I don't have to defend the truth to anyone. I don't have to compare myself that I'm divorced and that person isn't. I don't have to go into that because the truth stands by itself. And that means if Jesus Christ is with me, I don't have to argue, defend, disagree with anybody because the truth stands by itself. Christ is with me. And I did find out that the word confidence doesn't directly translate into with Christ, but it is a term for confidence, and it means to trust or to be confident in Christ. So it wasn't the exact words, but it actually, I don't know if that helps anybody, but that really helped me visualize that the truth, the light is with me. And that just kind of gave me this confidence that I didn't have to explain to anyone that I was released from my marriage, because it is hard when there could be a lot of opinions. And even I found myself as she's talking, having a little dialogue in my mind about, and even comparing like what happened to me, what happened to her. And it's like, oh my goodness, stop. We don't have to go there. We don't have to go there because the truth stands by itself. And I believe, and as I wanted to listen again, because the second time I listened, I said, I could feel when she was talking about being released.
Yeah.
It was real. And she doesn't have to validate to me, just like I didn't have to validate or prove or have evidence, because the truth stands by itself. And when you get that kind of, I think you even said, no one wants to get a divorce. Like, this is a painful thing.
Yes.
And I believe it's a death of a dream. We don't get married thinking it's going to end in divorce. We're raised as children, we read these fairy tale books and we read that it's supposed to be happily ever after. And then when it's not, it's like our whole world, we're grieving. It's like a death, it's a death of a dream, and it's painful. And there's a lot of opportunity for growth. There's a lot of opportunity to rely and trust God. So I love that she used those words.
Yeah.
Was released.
No, I love that too. And I have to say, and I said before, I'm probably going to say this on every show, this is not an anti-marriage podcast. But what I love, and we've just pivoted, this is just the third person, the third guest that we've talked to about their story, right? But I am finding in listening to our guests and then talking to other people that these stories, while different and while very different in some cases, there is so much similarity in the questioning that we have, and sometimes the guilt and the shame that we have. I mean, she described herself kind of jokingly, but she described herself as the woman at the well because she'd had the two marriages. And we all know that the woman at the well was filled with guilt and filled with shame until Christ released her, right? I love that word is so wonderful. And as you just said, I was there listening to her and feeling a lot of those feelings and understanding where she was coming from, because there were similarities in my marriage. But I agree with you also, Melanie, when you say that, many of us think that we're going to have the fairy tale marriage, and that's okay. But I wish what we were teaching our girls was that we can have the fairy tale marriage, but God has to be in that marriage with us. And I'm not saying if she and let's just go back to the first husband, if she and the first husband had that kind of relationship, I don't know what would have happened, but we do know from her testimony that God used really both those marriages in a way, but used those marriages. And she couldn't have done, or she couldn't have received this information from the second marriage if she was still with the first man, the first husband. I jokingly have told people that I wish, and I said this on the episode, I wish that I had followed my first mind and my husband's first mind, my second husband, and gone with the vows that we wanted to use, telling people that we don't love each other first. We love God first, but we didn't feel like that would be romantic enough for the wedding. I'm kicking myself now, but that's true. God is in our relationship like that, and he has to be. He has to be in your relationship. So yes, I think it's common, and maybe even we use the word human, to want to have that fairy tale relationship. God made us for relationship, but he made us for him first. So God made human. Yes, we know it was Adam, but God made human to be in relationship with him. And then he made the second human because relationship is important. So that's okay, but we've got to remember that God comes first.
Absolutely. And when I was preparing to be remarried, and I was dating, I made a list, and I encourage anybody who's in that situation to make a list of who you want to marry and who you need to be to get that person and who you guys are together. And one of the top things I put on my list is that he loves God first, that he loves God with all his heart, that God is first in his life. And that reminded me of that when you were talking of that. So I absolutely love that. The thing with the shame and the guilt, it's really interesting about shame and guilt, because what I heard is when it was brought up that in churches, that at a church or people could possibly make you feel bad about what's going on. And I just wanted to put it out there. And this, I don't want anyone mad at me, but I believe that feelings are signals and that no one can make me feel bad. It's a signal when I do feel bad. It could be true that someone is treating me in a way that isn't right, but what they do is none of my business. So I get to take that feeling as a signal and ask myself, what's going on here? Why do I feel that way? And the trick with shame versus guilt, now this is how I learned it, that it's always stuck with me. S is shame for Satan. G is guilt for God. I don't know about you, but shame and guilt feel the same. I feel it like this empty drop in my stomach that's like, it's like I almost want to throw up. Like I want to do something, but I'm like stuck. It does not feel good. So I'd like you to just think right now, when you don't feel good about something and it brings up that icky feeling of shame or guilt, where do you feel it? And I just want to describe how I see it as different. Like Satan uses shame to make us feel bad. Like you are bad. I am bad. Versus God always has a solution. He always has an answer. He always has something for you to do. And this is great with mom guilt. Here I am talking about mom stuff, but these principles work as a mom, as a wife, as a friend, as a daughter. These principles in all our relationships are the same. They work the same because I can go down this rabbit hole of I'm not good enough. I'm not enough as a mother. And it makes me feel bad. It makes me have that shame feeling. And like, let's say I want to go out with my girlfriends and I'm going to have to leave my child, I don't know, for 4 hours, let's say, right? And usually I don't do that because I feel like, oh, I want to be at home with my child. He's already 50, he's with his dad that much, and then he's out here. And so, I can't go, or I really want to go. And I'm like stuck between, like, I'm going to feel bad if I don't go see my friends, and I'm going to feel bad if I do. And so it's like, is that shame? Is that little feeling there like guilt or shame? Is God telling me I need to change my behavior? If I go out with my friends, does God want me to go out with my friends? I don't know. You can ask him, you know, does God want me to stay at home?
Yeah, let me jump in. I think you just hit the nail on the head, because for me, if I'm doing something that's bad, I'm not going to ask God. I'm not going to ask God what he thinks about it. But if I'm feeling a little guilty about something, I call it conviction. I will allow him to convict me. I will seek him and say, should I be doing this? Should I spend time with my girlfriends? I don't know about you, but I'm sure you do need a little bit of adult time with your friends so that you can be a better mom sometimes, right?
Absolutely.
But if you're up to some naughtiness, you are not even going to engage with God. So I think maybe that's the difference.
Absolutely. And it's important to try it on, you know. And so the question that you asked was, what do you do when you feel shame from your church or other Christians? Because that comes up.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was thinking about that for myself. And that kind of goes back to that confidence. Like when I'm with Christ, the truth stands by itself. I don't have to explain or convict someone else that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. You know, that conviction comes from God. And so when I can just if I am feeling that way, because that's a real scenario of being shamed in church.
Mm-hmm.
And you just need to make sure, is it shame or is it guilt? Is there a solution being presented, or is this just to make me feel bad? And then when you're sifting through, okay, I'm obviously triggered this person. I feel bad when I'm around this person. Well, if you can uncover, like it's all about questions, because when we
Yeah.
ask questions, our logical mind can come forward. Where if we're not asking questions, our subconscious is making up stories, you know. And so it's like, I don't like that person. That person's a jerk. That person, I'm going to stay away from that person. And then I come up with this whole story about, I'm going to avoid that person. I'm going to leave this church. And that might be the right thing to do. But if we're not asking God and we're just leaving the church because, hey, I don't like the way I feel here, I'm out. There could be more there. There could be more to the story that I can learn about what I'm really afraid of. And that feeling could just be a trigger of a deeper hurt that needs healing, that if I'm not curious about it, I could be falling into a repeated behavior
Mm-hmm.
that I'm just kind of running from people because it never works. And so what I like to look at is, is it what is the feeling giving us as a signal? What is it telling us? It usually is giving us information, which if we're curious, I can assure you there's more information underneath that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And to be clear, when you're just talking about like even examining those fears, to be clear, if you have a fear that you are not safe or that your child or children are not safe, that's a different thing. You need to certainly examine your physical and emotional safety and then go somewhere safe. So I'm not saying that at all. I don't think you're saying that. However, it is important to explore the thoughts and ideas that your mind is giving you. And I will say that I think that coaching and therapy can be really good for a marriage and even for the end of a marriage. Because at the end of my marriage, I saw my husband didn't want to separate. I knew that we had to. So I sought out a Christian counselor and was very clear about what we needed to do in these sessions. And we needed to coach to the end of the marriage. And I don't know, he didn't seem to think that that was unusual. I don't know if people who are listening have never heard of that, but I found that to be very helpful to prepare both of us for that. And then if during that God convicts and you realize, no, he wants me to work on this, then okay, that's something that you can explore. But no, I agree with you.
The other thing is that there can be two great Christians, two people that love God and are doing the best they can. And those two people are not compatible in marriage. I'm just saying, I'm not saying I think sometimes, when I was growing up, my dad said, if these are the only reasons why you can get a divorce. Like these are the reasons that God thinks it's okay to get divorced. And I don't know if that is true or not. I know the Bible is the word of God. Absolutely. Believe that with all my heart. And that's why I think it's so important to have your own relationship with God, so that you know who's talking. Is it my subconscious trying to just keep me safe and the same? Is it the Holy Spirit? Is it false beliefs that aren't really helpful, especially in the situation I'm in? So what I've found too is that just because of the line of work I do of, helping Christians in their marriage, sometimes two Christians can't stay married.
Yeah.
And, it's so what I'm trying to say is that a lot of us are doing the best we can. And even if there isn't adultery, addiction, mental health, there was one more, like physical abuse.
Yeah,
Well,
sure.
there's a lot of verbal abuse that, it's almost like, and I'm just going to say for myself, like I did not really want to get a divorce because it was so painful to have to tell my parents I was going to get a divorce. Like I felt like with God, I could stick it out and that I could endure. Like I really believed, like I wanted to do everything I could. I did my own therapy. I did marriage therapy, and I learned so much. And the bottom line is, relationships are hard. It takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of undoing. It takes a lot of self-knowledge to be curious about what is my part in this. And it would have been really easy for me to label my ex-husband, to point the finger at him, and I could have convinced a jury he deserves to be divorced. There's no question. And I'm so grateful for those 3 years that I was actively praying, God, release me from this marriage. Help me learn everything I need to learn from this marriage so I don't attract the same kind of person, because I loved him.
Yeah.
I thought he was my person,
It's heartbreaking.
As time has gone on, it's like God has done a work in me, and I do love him. We just couldn't be married for many reasons. But the most important ones are the ones that I know for myself, because I can only do, and what did I learn from that? So I don't have to bring it, into this next marriage. And I've been remarried for 5 years. And I know that the wife I am today has so much to do with what I practiced in a dysfunctional marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we have just a few more minutes left. And so I want to encourage you, use the word grateful. And I want to encourage everyone to, again, go back to Amanda's episode. She's got some great lessons about gratitude, and also look at those show notes because she also has some books on that. And I know that sometimes one of her ideas is to wake up first thing in the morning and think about the things that you're grateful for. And I know me, I wake up first thing in the morning and I'm not even thinking about anything. So I know that may seem hard, but I think she is right about intention. You have to set your intentions in early in the day as to how that day is going to go. So I just want to encourage people to go back and listen to that if you didn't get a chance to listen to that already, and check out her tools. Now, you made it to the end. So I want to talk to you about something that Melanie and I actually just discussed. And it's the idea of taking questions And so Melanie is a relationship expert. So every time Melanie is on, I will have a question for her from you. So send questions to Yvette at YvetteWalker.com, and I will share those relationship questions, divorce questions. Lots of people may be listening. We're particularly focusing on women who are either in the divorce phase, recently separated, going through the divorce phase, and all the issues that come with that. But if you are still married and have some questions, that is fine too. So share them with me, and I will share them with Melanie, and we will give some advice on the show every time she's on. So Melanie, thank you so much for being on the show. I will put your resources in the show notes for today's show. If whatever you want to share with the listeners, and I'll get that from you. But this has been great. Really happy that you were on the show, and loved the insights that you're able to give, not only for Amanda's episode, but for your own life.
Thank you so much. And I just want to give hope. Hope is the expectation that things are going to get better and God makes them better. So keep that hope, keep the expectation that God is there and aware of you.